today's edition of the Golden Era podcast with Sean Mooney. We're talking about SummerSlam.
Yeah.
89. I always love SummerSlam. Like, it has a certain, I don't know, feel. It doesn't have a WrestleMania feel. It just has a different, I don't know, like a
different vibe.
Yeah. I love
Summer. It. You know, we have all the shots, people at the beach, kids eating ice cream, Vince losing his voice. SummerSlam. Yeah. And it was in New Jersey in the summer where everybody wants to be.
That's what I think
down
of.
At the shore.
It's like,
I don't know if the Meadowlands, but they had 20,000 people there, Steve. So it was a good crowd.
True. Martha's Vineyard is more of a place for me when in the summertime, but apparently it's New Jersey for the WWE at SummerSlam 1989. Before we really get into it, I have a question for you, and this is really like a fourth wall type of question. Zeus is a character from a movie, but Zeus also somehow escapes the cinema, the screen somehow, and becomes a character, a wrestler in the WWE. Can you explain that to me?
The lines are blurred. You know, we've had other episodes where we've talked about the promotional genius of the WWE. This was another launched foray into another world of, Vince always wanted to, I think it was just to add more to the legitimacy of what we did, where he would want to go into these other industries and be successful. We saw that with the WBF that didn't work out so well, and getting into the movies, going into Hollywood. And the crossover that the Hulkster became mainstream early on there with Hulkamania, and they wanted to capitalize on it. And Vince knew that the Hulkster wanted to see what he could do in Hollywood, so why not take advantage of it? He was going to go anyway and see if they could get a piece of it too, and this might launch them into a whole new stratosphere. And that's what this was. And the idea after the movie, to be able to have one of the main characters in it, because, think back Rocky, what that was kind of in reverse. The Hulkster was this villain character in that, and look what that did for his career. So it's not that far-fetched to think about how they could make this happen. And, Tommy Lister, Tiny Lister, the Zeus character, was, he was an intimidating figure on and off the screen. I mean, that's who he was. So you weren't surprised by that he could still be this character off the screen, and he didn't like the way that they portrayed him in the movie, and didn't like the idea that the Hulkster was the hero and had set out to get even. And we knew that the vast majority of our fan base was used to being into this story world, this fairy tale world, and we're crossover. And they understood what it was, but they loved the fact that it had come into that world. So yeah, it was far-fetched. It was out there, but in a sense, it worked. Maybe better than the movie.
Oh, I think it definitely worked better than the movie. And, years later...
That's a whole other discussion, right?
Yeah, we'll have a whole... Trust me, we're going to have a watch-along with popcorn. We're going to sit here and force ourselves to watch it together in the movie theater. We'll turn the lights down, have a good time. But yeah, I just think, in my brain, it's like if Freddy Krueger came out of the screen and then goes into some sort of wrestling ring. It's like, hey, I'm going to fight you because you, Hulk Hogan, you were in a movie with me, and you were acting in it, and I don't like how the movie ended. Yeah. I don't like how you beat me in the movie, so I'm going to leave. So I'm like, my brain can't fathom, is Zeus an actor in the movie, and he's upset, and he comes into the WWE for revenge? Or is it's like my mind can't handle it. Can't wrap around what Zeus is.
Right?
It really is one of those moments.
Mind a little bit. But, that's what, the WWF, WWE was all about then. That was that, come into our world. It's the same thing to me as, you going into a movie theater and you want to just forget the rest of the world behind you and tell me a story. That and it was real life in a sense. It's right there. Those characters, you could touch them. if you got close enough. So I think everybody wanted to go for this ride, and for the most part, I think it worked. As we'll delve into it more and more, Zeus was certainly not a skilled wrestler. He was a very good athlete. He was actually a track star, shot putter who was record setter and was a good athlete. He talked about how he tried out, I think, for the USFL, and he didn't get signed, but he ran a 4.740, weighing 250 pounds. I think he was about 6'5", and so he was a good athlete. But you have to give him credit for what he was limited in there, and thank goodness, as we'll also talk about, that Hulk Hogan and the other guys in the ring with him took care of him, because it could have made it a really terrible experience for him. But Tiny talked about how well those guys took care of him. I don't, as far as the rest of the roster there, probably weren't real pleased by seeing all this happen. But at this point, they had, they had seen other celebrities get involved in, not necessarily in the ring and in the main event type of where they're going to be, involved. Yeah. We would see that. We'd seen that with, Mr. T and all that. But they were used to that. But was there some resentment? I'm sure there was, especially when the kind of money they were paying him. I mean, he got some good sized paychecks back then, and here are these other guys that are busting their ass night after night, going to all these different cities. You know the story, yeah. And then you see this guy waltz in and first class everything. He's got his own room at the arenas. He's got first class, hotel accommodations. Everything. So yeah, that was that probably on the lower end part of the roster probably wasn't as well received, but Tiny says how Randy was awesome to him, Warrior was awesome to him, Hulkster especially was great to him, and understandably so, because that also helped the Hulkster a lot as far as paydays and everything else went with it.
I loved Zeus. Like, I have nothing wrong with the character Zeus and the storylines they had. In my brain, it's just one of those moments of like, wait, because years later in WCW, RoboCop would show up and help Sting, or Chucky would show up on WCW Nitro, and those are made fun of. Those are continuously made fun of, even in today's world, and that's 20-something years ago. But Zeus, a character from a movie appearing on television, wrestling, the guy who was an actor in a movie with him, never really gets thrown into the same group of, wow, what the hell were they thinking? RoboCop? How stupid. This is not like that. I don't know if it's because of the success of those other franchise movies like RoboCop and Chucky versus the success of No Holds Barred, which, well, there was no success.
I don't know what the box office was, but I know it didn't set any records. I know that. And I remember in Stanford that we did a screening.
Oh,
yeah, they rented a theater and we all went to the screening in downtown. And of course, you've got a captive audience that and I remember the cheering and the gasps and the throughout.
You gotta.
But everybody's kind of thinking like, yeah, okay, yeah, oh yeah, great. That the real feelings I don't think came out at the time. It wasn't a crazy plot either, the whole thing, and they didn't really go too far. You know what I'm saying? They didn't make Hulk like a nanny or something like that.
Not yet. No.
You know what I mean? But if they cast it so he's a professional wrestler basically, and he's on this highly rated show or however it is, and then you've got the dastardly other network villain. And Kurt Fuller, who was a legit actor, who played Brill, or Brell, and and his network is awful, and he wants to get the Hulkster to come and help him over, and Hulk's like wants nothing to do with it, and so it wasn't the plot of it wasn't that far fetched. And another thing about the character with Zeus, we'd seen ferocious characters before in the WWE. So to have somebody like that, that's why I think it worked in a sense that he certainly, if he had been a trained wrestler, somewhere along the lines like the Warlord or the Barbarian, who are these just, horrible, awful, machines of death, that kind of that tear you to pieces. So it wasn't, to have a character like Zeus wasn't just it's off the charts, like that RoboCop, as you said.
Right. I just love Hogan as Rip Thomas, No Holds Barred, where they're like, what should we do? How does Hulk Hogan get away from being a wrestler? Let's make a wrestling movie. Oh, okay. What should he dress like? Just like Hulk Hogan, but it's gonna be blue.
Different colors, yes.
Like what method acting? Like I have nothing against this because it's a chance Vince McMahon took, and it cost $8 million according to online. It made $16 million, so basically it broke even. Okay. So because of production, and you're obviously spending your own TV time, as in Zeus is a huge investment. If the rumors are true and he was paid about $60,000 for this appearance at SummerSlam 1989, and he keeps appearing on regular superstars and Saturday Night's Main Events and other pay-per-views, we'll add all that up as time goes on. This movie might have paid for itself because of the Zeus Hogan storyline on television and SummerSlam 1989, but the critics weren't happy with this movie at all. They were not kind, but also
they weren't gonna like anything. They couldn't wait to hate it. Okay,
that's true.
So that's not even a, and I think that that of course the wrestling fan, which is a pretty good base, then you could count on them, and then other people just wanted to take their kids to a movie that's has Hulk good Hogan. And bad, and evil it tries to endure, and justice prevails in the end. It accomplished what it did. I think that at that point we kind of realized that the Hulkster was not Marlon Brando.
Dookie.
Yeah.
I know that's not him, but that's just funny.
But he was going to go on to make other movies. I think he would have been more successful if he was good at it. I mean, we see, what the success of Rock and everything. Rock wouldn't have been successful if he didn't have the chops and be able to do it in front of a camera. And as we've seen other guys do since, but you got to give the Hulkster credit because, he was along the lines of Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was a bodybuilder and became a very successful actor. The Hulkster opened that door for professional wrestlers to really, the first one was really Roddy, but on a bigger stage, it was Hulk Hogan.
Agreed. Yeah. And I honestly, it came in at number 2 when it came to the box office. It lost to the third Indiana Jones movie. So that kind of makes sense. Like if Indiana Jones maybe didn't come out that week or also was around, maybe we'd have a number 1, but we did not have a number 1. Though, again, I had no problem with Zeus. Not at all. Yeah. But the No Holds Barred movie, again, we talked about it before on Survivor Series 91 podcast, where that whole episode is about promoting This Tuesday in Texas. Yeah. And then you have a storyline built into this with Zeus and Hogan, building to the release date of No Holds Barred, June 2nd, 1989. And so it's already been in theaters now, and we're really hitting home. Like, they don't give up on promoting this movie all year long. And you have to give credit because Vince is like, I'm going to get my goddamn money back. I don't know how, I will invest time and I'll do it.
You know what? I don't even think it was, I don't know how. I think that as we had, talked about before with This Tuesday in Texas, it was another promotional experiment on a grander scale, because I knew all along that, Vince had always wanted to get into movie making. I think that was always a dream of his, and this was an opportunity to do it. But I think even when they, started to go into this, that they were thinking down the road, okay, what can we do with it? How do we cross promote this? How do we make it? So I don't think it was, all right, well, I didn't do great at the box office. How else can we get some bucks out of this? Right. I think that this was all part of the works of it. And, the management, and this is at a time, that when the Hulkster was going into this world of Hollywood, that, he knew that he couldn't have the WWE handle that part of management for him. So he was, going out and getting professional talent management. And I believe that Tiny was represented by the same guy that was Terry Bollea. And so a bunch of others, a few others, that were in this stable of and also other guys going out. And so they saw the opportunity there too on the other side that would help these guys get other roles. This movie certainly helps Tiny Lister go on and do a lot more after this. Not just, he was able to, cross over. He came back and did stuff for the WCW, whatever. It wasn't like he was going to have this.
That was Z Gangsta. That was his name. This
professional wrestling career, but it opened all these new doors for him and gave him a hell of a lot of exposure. So, all the way around, this was a win in a lot of ways for not only for the WWE, but also everybody else that was associated with it. And so, people have knocked it for years, but I also credit the WWE for having that foresight, to think like, okay, these are other ways down the road that we can actually involve our talent, give them what they want because they want to be movie stars or they want to, get that chance to be part of that mainstream. And look what we've seen happen since then. The Rock, John Cena is, Batista has got this great career going now, and they owe it all to people like Roddy, who was, Frogtown. Remember that one? I think to this day still this cult favorite. But the Hulkster on that, the big screen type movie, to be able to do legit big time movies.
What's interesting is you brought up Vince McMahon always wanted to make movies and music, and that he always was. It seems like everything, all these rumors that would come off as years and years and years ago on, Vince was like, Vince always wanted to promote. He's a promoter, and he found wrestling and he was just really good at that part of promoting. And you can see over the years, he tried to promote boxing, UFC, and this movie with No Holds Barred is interesting because clearly he already had an idea for this, because the company that made this movie is his company, Vince McMahon's company. It's called Shane Distribution Company, and that is named after Shane McMahon. And if I recall off the top of my head, there's also a music company called Stephanie, and I believe obviously it's Stephanie McMahon. So he had an idea of, hey, we're going to make these brands and these companies, and maybe I'll do something with them. Maybe I won't, because I know even stories of Vince McMahon buying a hotel. He had a restaurant. He wanted
with the Vegas. In Vegas, they had that.
Yeah.
They had, and then they had the restaurant in Manhattan.
Yeah, so he's tried so many different things.
Yeah. So, and a lot of it was business and expanding the empire, something kind of like what we're seeing now. With Endeavor, that's what that company's all about. But Vince had that vision early on, and wanted to have all these different entities. He didn't know how necessarily professional wrestling is cyclical; it's up and down, and you wanted to have
even
these
XFL.
other things.
XFL.
Yeah, XFL, exactly. But it was also a personal thing to him because of the way that the perception of professional wrestling always looked down upon, always shit on, always, just it's a carnival and all. And Vince proved them all wrong and show that his genius, his promotional genius, wasn't just wrestling. But as when you really look at it, and in terms of an entire career, well, it always came back to that. That's what he was great at. That's what made him successful. I was thinking about this yesterday too. So many people that have done well and had great careers doing things, but then you think there's like this other echelon of people, the Elon Musks, the Donald Trumps, these icons of business and success and empire. And you're like, what does it take for an individual to have the ability to do that? I mean, imagine what you got to go through. I mean, Vince McMahon basically started with nothing. He finds out he's got this promoter father and is kind of in the hinterlands of promotion, up in New England with some small arena, and he starts doing things there, and then has this vision that I can do this and take it across the world. And I mean, my God, and then look at what it became. And I was thinking back yesterday of those early days, and I don't think I was as aware of what was going on in the company and how early in its beginnings we were. That it hadn't been that long when they were doing everything out of Maryland. Hadn't been that long, that they had decided to move to Connecticut and had a few of these offices down in Stamford, when I know there was like 6 or 7 people in the whole office. It wasn't that far removed. By the time I got there in 88, it was still, they were, had gotten attention and stuff, but it was in its infancy, I think is a better way to say it. And I remember, seeing Vince driving around Stamford with the Clinet and the obnoxious suits, the different colors and stuff. I'm thinking, that is just a special human being to just have that vision and never stop. So, through all of those failures, if you want to call them, with of those attempts to do, but it never stopped him. He just went and said, "Okay, what's next? The WBF, the XFL,
I know.
The attempts at movies, the buying a casino, opening a restaurant in Manhattan, everything." So they're individual. They're the special human beings that there's just something inside them that has that vision, and that I will never stop until I get it.
And if you look at No Holds Barred, he broke even. So in reality, he tried something. He got his money back. XFL, the same kind of thing happened there. Boy,
did we get off track here, huh?
No. SummerSlam 1989 really
SummerSlam.
SummerSlam 1989. Well, because Zeus. The first thing I thought of, I have to ask him about Zeus and this weird ass fourth wall shit that I'm like wrapped in my brain. I can't get around it. I'm like, he's like movie character, but he's mad at the actor who played the actor in another movie. Like, boom. But this event, SummerSlam 89, it's actually a huge increase from the year before with ratings, 56% increase, which really shows you business is going up.
Growing. Mm-hmm.
But the one thing that really makes me angry, Gorilla Monsoon is missing from the broadcast. This is his first time missing a pay-per-view since WrestleMania 1. Do you have any idea why this is happening? What's he doing?
Well, keep in mind, this is when Tony had just come into the company.
Tony Schiavone,
yes. And, Tony wasn't like me. He wasn't coming in there to be a backstage announcer or do stuff that Gene and I necessarily did. He was really brought in to be a play-by-play guy. That was his specialty. And, I was trying to think that, I was trying to correspond dates and everything of why Gorilla might not have been there, because I don't remember a specific reason that he needed time off or anything like that. But I think it was really the opportunity to give Tony that opportunity to be on that big stage, and Vince had basically promised him that he was going to be part of that team and be in the forefront. And this was an opportunity. It wasn't WrestleMania, but it was a big event. And to team him up with Jesse, I don't think Gorilla had any problem with it. I don't remember hearing any grumblings about it or him saying, what's going on here. Gino was always a team player. And I know he loved doing the play-by-play. He did. Liked that part of his job, because Gino did a lot of different things. But I think that if you dig too deep into it, you're not going to really find anything that there was some big event or he was not in good health or anything. That wasn't the case. I think the opportunity to give Tony his shot and see how he fit in that chair.
You're right, because it's not WrestleMania. WrestleMania is still even today's world is still like the number one show. Put out
and Gino how many more WrestleManias? So it wasn't that.
Right. And
it wasn't in the doghouse or something.
No.
Mad at him like he used to do with a lot of announcers,
Schiavone, I think, does like the Rumble too. And he's like, they're wearing Mickey Mouse ears, and it's a little fun little moment with Jesse there. But here, it's interesting because there's no Gorilla, and it's just one of those things that sticks out to me. But I think the number one video, meme, GIF that is still shared in today's world happens at this SummerSlam. It involves Mean Gene Okerlund.
I should have had a clock here. I was thinking, like, how long before he brings up the fuck it?
Yeah, fuck it.
Can we say that? I'm sorry.
You can say it. You can
beat me out, but
no, it's fine.
That's what happened, folks.
Well, so what? Okay, So you're there too. You're at this event. I know you're in the crowd. We'll talk about that in a second. But because me and Gene steals the show at the SummerSlam. Sorry, Mooney, not you today. This is interesting because when he yells "fuck it," you're like, wait, what did he just say? Because the sign is he's interviewing Rick Rude. The sign behind him, the SummerSlam sign, it falls down. He swears and it airs. It actually airs. Now tell me before we get really deep in the weeds is. These types of things, these interviews for wrestlers, these aren't live. These are taped early in the day, correct?
No, not all of them.
Not all of them.
We talked about this before, and it wasn't, as I've said, Vince liked that authentic, it just happens kind of thing. But pre-tapes helped because it just eased up the production that we needed to do, where you'd have to have another camera in there and take crew to be backstage for that and the whole thing. So we did tape. We did start taping a lot of them, but I always like to refer to them as live to tape.
Of course,
because there wasn't 2-3 takes. There wasn't somebody, try saying it this way. I mean, it was just go. But when we did those, and if something would happen, on occasion it did. There's no question about it. That the edict really was, you burned it. If you know what I mean, folks, that means you get rid of it. So there's no chance in hell that it's going to be able to be possibly mistaken for a take and it roll. And whoever was in charge of that machine, and I can tell you that
you got names?
You
got names, the person who aired it?
Yeah, right. And he's still having nightmares, I'm sure. But when we would go to a lot of these venues, Philadelphia, Madison Square Garden, the Meadowlands, whatever, these were all union shops. So in many cases, I mean, it was even to the point where when the guys would set up the ring, our crews couldn't touch the stuff. They couldn't touch the apron stuff. They couldn't put up the ring posts. They would have like a ghost person with them, and that person would be with him, and he'd say, "Okay, now you got to do this, and you got to put that up," and then, and then after a while, they'd work with these crews, so these guys basically knew what they're doing, but they weren't allowed to bring their own crew in there, and they'd have them set up. And I'm sure it was the same case with the truck. And what's funny about it, when you look at that that take, is that when the thing falls down and Gene's like, fuck it. And he goes, is that $200 an hour? Well, that he's referring to these, like, was that that must have been a union guy. I mean, and but I had an earpiece, as you know, we have what they call IFB. And so this is the way I can keep up on the show. This is how I can hear when they throw it to me. So it's a natural break. I don't have somebody pointing at me or something. I can actually hear what they're saying. So I'm listening to this whole thing, and I hear that, and I'm like, I knew immediately what happened. I knew immediately because I knew we had done these pre-tapes, and that I'm like, oh my God, they rolled the outtake. The one before it. So what, they have these big tape machines, and like in sports, if you see that with a replay, they have a guy that just sits there, and at least back in the day too, they go, the director would tell them, I want a replay. A guy catches a football, whatever, and they just roll this thing back, and they get it. It's on a screen like that. They get it to where they want, and somehow when that take happened, all the guy must have done is rolled it back and kept the tape going, or let it move forward from there, and they took another take. And so when they queued it up, they see Gene there with the guys, and he's ready to go, and they wait, and it's basically like pushing a button. Well, they on the wrong take, they didn't get rid of that one, and that's what you saw. The prop part of it falls off the thing, and and Gene turns around, and you can find it on YouTube where they play the whole thing. It's not just Gene saying "F it." Vince is, of course, listening, and he barks into Jesse's ear, "Say something to cover him." And what does Jesse say? "Oh, that bald-headed guy." somebody's going to be going after to run him down for what he just did. And it's great that somebody finally got, to him. I would have loved to see Vince's face when he said that, like, what? You're supposed to say something to cover it, not bury him. And Gene was pissed too that he buried him. It was just like, thanks a lot, So that whole thing was a disaster. But stuff. Shit happens. I'm sorry, but that's kind of the way it was. But I remember hearing it and going, I knew exactly what happened. I was like, oh my God. But all the stuff when I was out in the crowd, though, everything was live. And if anybody saw some of the stuff that I experienced out in the crowd, that was fun. That was a blast.
So with that though, when you're in the F it thing happens, and again, you've been in the crowd this whole time. You just heard that. And again, this is out there. It's one of the most famous moments from this event. Honestly, God, I think it is the most famous thing from this event. And there's nothing wrong with this event. It's a good matches. It's fun storylines, whatever. But like Mean Gene, Rick Rude steal the show. But with you in the crowd, though, when you have to talk to random people or wrestlers or anything like that, especially here, you're in the crowd. Are you scouting people, or do you have a producer helping you find people? Or like, are you seeing that'd be a good person to interview?
Oh yeah. We would definitely set up stuff and have somebody planted. But I mean, not actors or something like that. It would be legit people there. And I talked to them to see if they could put a sentence together and if they had something good to say. And that if I ask them a question, I put the mic in front of them and then they just look at me, So I was very used to doing that. What you couldn't count on and you had no control over is what everybody else around you was going to do. Oh, because it's a moth to flame. When you'd have to have a light on, and as soon as that came on, people took that as the signal we're live, which is exactly what it meant. And I think there's one when I'm up there, and they wanted to give people an idea of how big the crowd was and how excited they were, so they put me further back from the camera. And I basically disappear, because everybody sees that as a chance to get in front of and wave and do whatever they want to do. And so that made it pretty interesting. But what else though I did enjoy about it is doing some of the talent interviews on the floor and experiencing that, because that was fun, because I was so used to doing them backstage, and there's a different vibe when you're out there in the crowd. And interviewing Honky Tonk Man, for example, that was I love doing that stuff. Yeah, those always, again, SummerSlams for some strange reason in the late 80s, early 90s have like a certain feel. There's always, I don't know why, it has this vibe like we brought up earlier. And I think you doing those with Honky Tonk Man, like the feeling, because it seems just hot. I don't know how to describe the word hot in visuals, but it seems like SummerSlam really does that for you here. But there's some hot angles happening here in the company too, and one of them, though, unfortunately, is Andre the Giant being arrested a week before SummerSlam, and that was
because
weird.
He was attacking a local cameraman who was supposed to do a news story, but he wasn't given clearance to actually film. And he thought, as probably a member of the media, he can do that. So he shoots the crowd, and Andre does not like this. He manhandles him. He only gets arrested and pays a fine, $1,200. But in reality, do you hear about these stories? Does Vince McMahon give clearance to media to come in? Because as we know, before this time, there's been a lot of lawsuits, mishaps, violence between media and wrestlers.
Yeah. No, the local media rarely, unless they were a trusted source that they knew was not going to try and do this expose. But you could never, as even today, and I am a member of the media, that you can't trust them in a sense. And back then it was really rarely would you see somewhere where you get close or that kind of thing. They might do some promotional, gaga, as we used to call it, but not really. And so that I'm sure that it wasn't great. I'm sure Vince wasn't pleased about it, but at the same time, I don't think he was really upset with Andre, because the guy did cross the line, and Andre didn't put up with stuff like that. But I wouldn't even call it a black eye. It's these guys would, and it was kind of like I don't know, paparazzi light. People would try and create these situations where they'd get a reaction. And in this sense, I guess you could say it worked. But you got to. One thing Andre never put up with was disrespect. People he felt were either mocking or making light of the business. He did not like at all. So it could have been a lot worse for that cameraman because, as you know, Andre didn't take much effort to harm a human if he wanted to. So it was what it was.
Right. And again,
can you imagine trying to put a pair of handcuffs on Andre? I'd heard stories where he'd gone into like in Japan and Andre loved Japan. He just felt as much of a spectacle as he was, but he felt comfortable there. And there's stories of him where he'd go into a nightclub and have a few drinks and be feeling it. And if they liked the music, he'd get up and dance, and he'd be taking his shirt off and just do. And people and they would say, people would be so offended, and they like tell the manager guy, like, tell him to put his shirt back on. And they'd say, "You want to tell him to put his shirt back on? Go right ahead. It ain't gonna be me." No. So could you imagine trying to put a pair of handcuffs on Andre? I don't think that happened. So,
and I can't imagine, like, he's so large, like the size of a bear. Imagine trying to taser him.
Car.
Like, it's like the taser hits him. He's just like, "What is this?" Like,
yeah.
You're gonna have to shoot me like 1,000 more times. I've drank more alcohol than any human in the world. So you try tasering me. Yeah, I thought it was so strange when I read that story. I was like, he was arrested? But it makes sense because this is definitely the time you're trying to still protect the business, but yet the business is sort of being exposed.
Yeah, and also certainly didn't hurt business that way. In some ways, I think it was good. Just to see that real life happens here. That with these, I think in some ways it helped the hype.
Yeah, don't mess with wrestlers because this is legit, and that's what he's definitely showing you. Another big thing here before we talk about this big event is Andre the Giant, biggest superstar in the world, but a man who was taking growth hormone pills. Big John Studd won the 1989 Royal Rumble. So we're thinking, oh, he's back. He's a special guest referee for another match. He's supposed to be booked here at this event. Hacksaw Jim Duggan, your old colleague, replaces him. What was up? Do you have any idea what the plans were for Big John Studd at all? Because out of nowhere, he just shows up and wins Royal Rumble. He's been around for a long time. And now he's getting sort of like more storylines, and then he just disappears.
Well, I think it was another shot, but as you mentioned, it was short-lived. And, overall, he was not well received there by pretty much everybody, but one big individual who really despised him was Andre the Giant.
Of course.
Just, on the professional level of to him, I'm the Giant. There's no other at that time. And also he just didn't like him. He just didn't like the way he worked. And so whenever they worked together, man, I mean, Andre, you talk about stiff. There was points where, Studd just ran out of the ring and just went out the back door. Because Andre was going to throttle him and did. It just never worked. And I think that they, he was this huge human. Now, why wouldn't he work well in what we were doing? But as we've said before, everything has to work. It has to go along. You have to be able to not only just perform in the ring, you got stuff that backstage has to work as well. And it just never did. That's with Big John Studd.
Yeah, it was just so weird to see that happen.
It was. It was, and I think it was, just an opportunity, and maybe it could have gone better. But I think they realize a lot of times when those situations, somebody might come back. It didn't take long, as I said before. The agents were very perceptive. All those guys had been in the business forever, and so they got a feel for everything that was going on.
Yeah, he's out in June. He's mad about payoffs, and honest to God, I'd be like, you should be happy you're getting paid, sir. Like I know, and I know the history of giants not liking each other, Haystack Calhoun or going down the line is giants don't like each other because each giant thinks they're trying to steal their spot, because in reality, there's only room for one giant guy who can't be body slammed or can't be pushed over, and it's onto the giant. It's forever going to be him. You can't replace him no matter what. Even if you put lifts in your shoes, it won't happen. Those are rumors. I don't know if he really did. Another big thing around this time is, Tony Schiavone kind of makes history here. Is he's announcing matches with Dusty Rhodes and the Brainbusters, and those are old, WCW Crockett guys, things of that nature. And the Brainbusters coming into the WWF, and they're the tag team champions. They recently won them. But at this event, they don't defend them against the Hart Foundation in the first matchup of the evening. It's a non-title match, but yet we have tag team champions in the match. Bret Hart apparently was very upset with this. With Vince McMahon saying, "I'm going to lose at SummerSlam, and it's non-title." Like, first off, I want your thoughts on why would someone ever have a championship and not defend it, even when you win the match, which makes no sense to me. But also, why wouldn't you? I guess the question is, why wouldn't you?
Well, you have to think about how they were going to book this. Maybe they wanted to build it up more. You had two really very capable tag teams in those, in Arn and Tully. And it was I thought it was a very good match that they had, despite the fact that, that Jim and Brett were not pleased by it. But I think that they had more plans to go on with this. And then, of course, as we would see down the road, as far as the belt would go, it didn't make a whole lot of sense. I thought that it would have given a little more cachet to that match. But, Bobby Heenan says that when this was booked, it was before they were tag team champions or some lame thing.
Yeah.
So I didn't get it either. I just thought that that would have added a little more to that matchup. But as far as when it came down to just them going at it, I thought overall it was a pretty damn good match, and there's no other reason why it wouldn't have been. They worked very well together, and despite the fact that the Hart Foundation, those guys were really pissed off about it and had words with Vince about it. So I'm sure that they worked out something of how they would make it up to them. But I think that they legitimately had a good reason for, even if they didn't take the belts, but at least to show that they were legitimate challengers for the title.
Hart Foundation gets it back a year later, so it takes a whole year.
It did, to
get them back, because Demolition eventually gets their championships back, and so it's just one of those things of like, you're the champions, but you're not defending it. But Bobby does I like heel Bobby Heenan saying that, like, well, Bobby Heenan technically, Bobby Heenan's a smart guy, because this is when people would win matches or lose matches over the the purse money. If you win matches, you make more money, which made complete sense to me. I never understood why we were fighting here in the first place. But yet, the Bobby Heenan makes history is for the Heenan family. Rick Rude walks in as IC champion. Brainbusters walk in as tag team champions. So in reality, like, Bobby Heenan's having a good night. It doesn't end very well for him with Rick Rude, though. But I always love Bobby Heenan, and the fact that finally the Heenan family has championship gold. Like, it just gives him more ammo on his heel promos. And Bobby Heenan, no one can touch him.
Yeah. And I love the fact that this is one time he wants to go by the rules. Yeah. These guys, well, we would love to have them, but we'd love to put them on the line. But, we got to go by.
We can't.
And before we move on, though, you mentioned Tony Schiavone, and I think that this is, we really should go a little deeper into him and that connection of guys coming north, I guess. And I've often thought about it that, Tony had a short stay there. I think it was about a year that he was there. And I often wonder what would have happened if he would have stayed. I think that that he would have, gotten an opportunity to really have cemented himself with the WWE. And I know it's a great regret of his. Every time I've ever talked to him, he always says how, it's the one thing I wish I would have stayed. Oh, yeah. At the time, it was different for him. He has a large family. They had moved up to Stanford. I'm sure it was a culture shock for them and having to adjust to so many different things. And I think that if he would have given it more time, and, that's like anything else, you really have to, I think about my first year there and how insane that was. And I know if I wouldn't have stuck with it, I would have certainly regretted it. And I always wonder that if would he have been the Michael Cole of the WWE, where he would have spent many years, because Tony wasn't just a great announcer. He was also a producer. He's everywhere he's gone, he's also been a producer. And I remember back then he was doing, helping out with Coliseum home videos. I remember he produced a bunch of them with me. And that's how I got to be close with him. We didn't get to do a whole lot of stuff on camera. There's stuff out there. We did, I think one time we hosted Primetime and we did some things, but he got that opportunity. I thought he worked well with Jesse. It's hard when you just get bounced into something like that, when it takes many, many events when you're doing a team like that. Mm-hmm. But I've often wondered, and I'm sure Tony has as well, but what kind of an impact he could have had in a tenure that he could have had with the WWE. Things changed differently. And of course, we've seen it all work out very well for Tony at this point. But I missed him when he left. I really enjoyed working with him then. And I've always said that to him, that, it was great when he was in Stanford. It was just another great group of part of a group of people that were there. And I think that he fit right in. But I just think at the time, him and his wife it was just a strange world for them. And he got an opportunity to go back and took it and regretted it.
He was the voice of the Monday Night Wars for WCW. Yeah. So maybe personally for him, he regrets it. For a lot of fans, he was the voice of WCW for those times. But but in this era, it's funny because, we have Gorilla and Bobby as the team that when people put out like, who is the greatest combo to do commentary in the WWE, it's always either Gorilla and Bobby, Jim Ross, and Jerry Lawler. Like those are your two groups that are arguing. And right now, Michael Cole by himself, he might be winning that war, but for a long time, it's those two combos. So I think, people like you, Lord Alfred Hayes, Tony Schiavone, Jesse Ventura, they sometimes get forgotten about because Bobby and Gorilla were putting out hits every single time they talked. And I think that's hard to compete with, obviously, in a business where if the gift of gab is how we make money, well, Bobby Heenan, you can't touch him. No one can touch him.
And Tony did. I mean, I wasn't downplaying when he left.
No.
Because like you said, he was part of that 83 weeks and all, but it was just the atmosphere. I don't think that he really enjoyed that. And I just think he would have thrived if he had stayed. Maybe not initially because there was some down years there, but I think that he would have done very well.
True. And the Hart Foundation, they lost to Brainbusters, if anyone was curious. And then Dusty Rhodes fights the Honky Tonk Man. We talked about this in our Dusty Rhodes Come to the WWE event, where Honky Tonk Man pretty much was refusing to lose to Dusty Rhodes. Even later in shoot interviews, though, saying that he was, this is Honky Tonk Man talking about Dusty Rhodes, saying he was a stiff piece of shit.
Wow.
Well, tell me how you really feel, Honky.
That wasn't nice. Yeah.
No. And I guess if I was Honky, I'd be upset going because his career at this time is going on the downswing. But do you know if Dusty was ever stiff?
No, I've never heard that really before. As far as, him in the ring with these guys, that I just think that they're maybe in that situation. I just think there was some resentment, that Dusty getting the pushes that he was getting, and it was just part of that. Not everybody got along. That's just the way it worked. And as we've mentioned before, that you're getting knocked, and you got to take a pinfall for in a matchup. It doesn't sit well, and especially you said Wayne was at a point where it's kind of on the downswing here, and he's going to lose to the guy in the polka dots, who, got a pretty damn good push. Now, not that he had certainly earned his way in the world of professional wrestling, but to be able to just come into the WWF, and I'm sure that Honky Tonk Man felt that he had paid his dues a lot more there. So, but I was never in the ring. I don't know when you see the guy working with the atomic elbow, how hard he's laying that in there, because they're such professionals. Yeah. So, that was his opinion, but I don't remember hearing other guys coming backstage and going, Jesus, that guy's freaking stiff, So
right. That's true. The highlight though is you getting to interview him in the after the match.
Hey, and I love the character. I love the Honky Tonk. I thought as a performer, man, and that whole shtick was awesome. He was the perfect guy for it. Had that the Elvis down in that particular day when he gets whacked by his own guitar from Jimmy, and then he's knocked so silly he thinks he's Elvis, and I think he calls Jimmy Priscilla.
I think so.
I'm glad I was off camera there, because I know I laughed, and I think I was allowed to. But I thought, I just came here to sing. Oh, it's so great! All these people will come and hear me sing. It's like,
sir, you're not Elvis. No, I think
I'm still a Honky Tonk Man fan. Of course, I love Wayne. I love his whole thing, the way he pulled it off with the
dude,
and the guitar that he couldn't play.
It wasn't tuned. It wasn't tuned right.
Mooney. It wasn't even tuned right.
Come on, how could you say that? He was Intercontinental champion though for like 2 years, so I don't understand why his disappointment. Maybe he was hit too hard, and that's why he thinks Dusty Rhodes is a piece of shit.
You want to be on top forever. Who does ever? I think a 2-year run is good for me. I'll be good. Then they can just squash me. Nobody.
Oh no, I can understand why he'd be upset. But the next match I'd be even more upset with. It's Red Rooster versus Mr. Perfect, and it's cut short because Red Rooster gets injured during the match, and it's legit. About 3 minutes long, and it's legit, and so he loses. And what were your thoughts? Because there's been so many rumors on the Bruce Pritchard show. I remember they would joke about the box of gimmicks, and they were like had a box, and they'd pull a name out of a hat and be like, Mr. Perfect, you can this was for Kurt Hennig. It's like, Terry Taylor, you get the
Rooster.
You're Rooster.
Yeah.
Oh, because Terry Taylor, if you look at his history of wrestling across the world, he's damn good wrestler,
good worker, good hand.
And yet here, you're like, again, I have no problem with the Red Rooster. I like the character. I think everyone's doing great at this point in time. All their characters perfect. He sold that shit. I loved it. But what were your thoughts on the Red Rooster? Because what? Bobby Heenan, I guess, in a storyline one day was like, this guy's so good, we can name him anything. We can name him the Red Rooster. Yeah. And that's how that shit stuck. Ugh.
Yeah. But it's, I don't even know if Dusty could have put that one over. What do you do? And the whole thing with they do with the, like, it was a rooster, and he had
like a red thing in his hair too.
Oh yeah. The red mohawk stuff. And he took a lot of heat for that backstage. I mean, that was unending. But like anyone else, these guys, he was a professional. He sold it as best he could. But that kind of surmised it all when in that match. That here he gets hurt about 3 months in, and that was kind of the end of the Rooster. It wasn't too long before that Rooster was on the chopping block, so to speak. So. Yeah, it was, and people might say, as we mentioned with Dusty, sell the polka dots. It was a little tough to sell the red mohawk. It just never. I don't. I mean, like I said, no matter how good you are, like, what do you do with that? You get some chicks, some hens that that are. I don't know. I got my chicks with me. Make him this cocky rooster.
And the strangest part though is like Bobby Heenan when he says like, I could name him anything. I could name him the Red Rooster. There's a difference between being named Red Rooster and actually being a human who's acting like a rooster. Yeah, that's a little different. That's a little different. All right. Rick Martel, though, he's up next with Rougeau's, and I love Rick Martel at this point, but he's not officially the model. He's even being managed by a Slick. And when I saw, I was like, wait, Slick was with Rick Martel? Like, let's talk about managers for a split second, because if you're a heel, do you need a manager at this point in time? Like, no matter who you are, you need someone to do some devious shit outside.
Well, it's also to help you with promos. And I think Rick got much better as the model. I think he kind of got into it. But usually it was because they needed help more with the promos. They didn't necessarily need somebody at ringside, because, I mean, if you need a manager at ringside, which, you know, that guy draws attention away from you when it really comes down to it, whatever they're doing. So, yeah, you don't want them. You want them to maybe be there and maybe an interferer there or interfere there somewhere, but not, you don't want tension drawn away from you. So, that was definitely in a situation where, and it was funny because, you know, you'd have these 4 basic managers or something, and then they would, okay, we'll put him with Slick. He needs a little help. So,
that's what happened here.
I think it just came down to that. And, you know, he wasn't a bad heel. You know, Rick was, I thought, was a very good worker. He was very good.
Oh my God. By Survivor Series, he is the Rick, the model Martel. This is when the Strike Force recently broke up. So it's Rick Martel and the Rougeau brothers defeating Tito Santana and the Rockers. And, you know, it's sad we never got a Tito and Rick Martel match one-on-one, but, you know, whatever. From here, though, we go into like a rematch from WrestleMania 5. It's Ultimate Warrior looking to regain his Intercontinental Championship back from Rick Rude. Rick Rude loses the gold here. Warrior becomes champion one more time, and he holds it up until we reach WrestleMania 6, which is crazy. And you know, this is one of those selling points of, we talked about Warrior like a million times over, but this Rick Rude in Ultimate Warrior, like, they seem attached at the hip. They fight 3 times on pay-per-view in their careers together in the WWF. Like, what is the reasoning, you think, why this combo keeps working? Is it one guy is just a huge, massive, muscular man warrior, and Rick Rude also has muscles and he's a devious heel, and that's it? Like, I don't really see a connection between these two that I'm like, man, I can't wait to watch this.
Yeah, and I think that overall that was kind of the feeling, but at the same time, I don't think Rick gets a lot of credit for how good he was and what he could do to help put these guys over. And, you know, there was legit heat between those two. More than Rick Rude, who was not a big guy, really, when it came down to it. He had the muscles and everything, but he wasn't like a big guy. I mean, maybe he weighed 220 or something. I don't know. But I'm just saying, I compare it to the rest of these guys.
Of course, Warrior's gigantic.
Yeah, but Rick was old school. He was one of those guys, you know, hanging back and with these guys, you know, from the bad old days, and he could go, man. You piss that guy off, he had no problem going at it. And there were a few occasions where he, you know, basically Stone Cold just, you know, smacked the Warrior and was really stiff with him out there because Warrior did what he did. And I think that some of that was to get Warrior in line, because they knew that Rick could do it, and they, you know, he helped Jim have some pretty good matches. So I think that was part of it. And it to benefit Rick, it gave him an opportunity to be in the mix for the strap, you know, to have a title. So I think it worked out both ways, and obviously that they had him in those situations 3 times. It worked. As we've always said, that if it doesn't with the crowd, then it's just not, you know, they're not going to do it. So that combination worked.
That's a good point, because in Royal Rumble 89, they have a pose down. WrestleMania 5, they wrestle. SummerSlam 89, which we're talking about, they wrestle. SummerSlam 1990, they wrestle. Championship gold is on the line on all 3 matches, except for the bodybuilding contest, which we'll have to discuss at some point, because we'll have to do a pose down ourselves, and I think I'd beat you. Just, you know, whatever.
Rick Rude, but I'll say, like, Rick Rude was not a fan of the war. There was no love lost between them, and I don't think that really ever changed. Maybe some respect was earned at some point, but overall, I don't think that there was a lot of love there.
No, I wouldn't think so. Greg the Hammer Valentine defeats Hercules next, and I love the storyline that involves rugged Ronnie Garvin, where President Jack Tunney, a prestigious president, he has ideas where Ronnie lost a match to Greg the Hammer Valentine. He had to retire. He had to retire. He was no longer an active wrestler. So Jack Tunney and his genius is like, well, you need a job, don't you, pal? You could be a referee.
A referee.
We'll only put you in refereeing Greg the Hammer Valentine matches. Oh, you're cheating. You're hurting Greg. Okay. You'll be a ring announcer, but only for Greg the Hammer Valentine matches. Oh, that didn't work out. Timekeeper. Oh, for Greg the Hammer Valentine matches. Oh, that doesn't work out. Listen, I'm gonna say it right now. We need to impeach 1989 Jack Tunney right now. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I would say the word mismanaged was that opportunity with Ronnie Garvin, because he's another example of a guy that was huge in other organizations. I mean, just well over a great worker, and I don't think he ever really got past the, mid-card rating, basically, with the WWE. I don't know why he wasn't a different character really when he came to the WWE, but never really got over. Had some great matches with Greg. Greg Valentine was great in the ring, and I think that they, that whole angle with them all worked, but it just never happened for Ronnie Garvin, which was kind of surprising because he was over huge down south.
Yeah, it's about the Garvin stomp, though. To me, when Randy Orton started using it years ago, I was like, oh my god, he's doing the Garvin stomp. Yeah. And maybe it's someone else did it too, maybe his father did it, but for me personally, as a WWF fan, I knew that move from rugged Ronnie Garvin in the WWF around this time. But it's a weird combo of matches, though, because clearly after Warrior and Rick Rude, they just keep piling them in, because DiBiase fights Jimmy Snuka in a match that really had no storyline, because Jake the Snake was supposed to fight DiBiase. He got in some issues with the law, so they had to kind of cancel that match. So they just threw in this, and on TV, had a storyline between DiBiase and Jake, but Jake wasn't actually allowed to be on TV because he was dealing with the law. So it's very interesting just to see, we're just gonna throw these two matches together. Demolition and Jim Duggan's up next. They take on Andre the Giant, Akeem and the Big Boss Man, and Demolition and Jim Duggan win. But again, we mentioned earlier, Duggan replaces Big John Studd. But this is when Duggan he beat King Haku, so it's King Duggan. And they have the face paint on, and they look.
There was at one point where I didn't know how many more gimmicks you could put on, Hacksaw. Yeah, the 2x4, the crown, the face paint. It's like he was like Captain Gimmick.
Hey,
talking about box of gimmicks. He had them all at one point. Oh, and the flag. Got to have the flag in there.
He had the flag too. Yeah, he
had a whole suitcase just for the gimmicks.
Yeah, he's got a flag. He's got a 2x4. Yeah. He's wearing a crown, and he also had and his 2x4 is also wearing a crown, and he is wearing a crown. So that's how much shit you got going on. Yeah. But unfortunately, when Hasbro put out the action figure of this actual event with Hacksaw, it only is him with his face paint. He does not come with all his accessories.
Too many accessories. There would have been too many accessories. They had to have the 2x4. No, wasn't even a 2x4 with that action figure? Nope, not in this picture. Wow, it's just not in the 2x4 wearing the crown, covered in USA as well. Dude, this guy's got everything. If this would have been the action figure that cost you $100 to purchase. Yeah, gimmick man. Damn it, it doesn't happen. And then of course the main event is Hulk Hogan and let's get to it. Brutus the Barber Beefcake versus Randy Savage and Zeus. It's the main event. Hogan and Beefcake do win the matchup, and Brutus the Barber Beefcake. We've talked about it before. Does it pay to be Hulk Hogan's best friend or friend? Boy, it did. It sure did then, for sure. Yeah, not a friend to the doesn't seem, but boy, at the time it paid big dividends for Brutai. No question about it.
like it feels so out of left field. Just like, okay, so suddenly you're in the main event because of the storyline building to this, where Savage fought Beefcake on an episode of Sunday Night's Main Event. Like that's the combo we're having, but they don't form like a mega powers. Hogan's like, listen, listen, buddy, I like you, but I'm not forming a group with you until like WrestleMania 9 when we have to do this. It's just, hey, here's Brutus, and then after this, it's just Brutus is no longer involved with Hogan.
Well, Saturday Night's Main Event was a great tool to. It was instant, whatever you wanted to put, whoever you wanted to put together, whatever. That's where you could do it. And this whole buildup, really, as we started talking about at the beginning of this discussion, was all to help promote the movie and bring that Zeus character into it. So Hulkster needed a sidekick for this one, and Brutus got the call, and then we were off to the races. The matchup was what it was. As we mentioned, Tiny was limited in his ability to what he could do in the ring, which was fine. We'd seen other performers in there who were on the roster who couldn't do a whole lot more. Ooh. So we won't get into that. That's another episode, Steve Fall. But so they did what they had to do in this one. I mean, they loaded it up. I mean, come on, you got Miss Elizabeth is going to be making an appearance and the whole deal. So it was definitely everything you'd want and more. What else could you put in this bag?
That's true. And it's the second time we've so far, because 88 was the first SummerSlam, 89 is a tag team match. Mm-hmm. You go to SummerSlam 1990 is when we finally have singles. But it's like Hogan back-to-back tag team matches. And really this is supposed to build, because I guess the storyline in rumors is Zeus versus Hogan WrestleMania. We're going to build to that one-on-one tag match here. They're on opposite teams of Survivor Series. That was the plan, but clearly it does not happen. And I don't know if it's based off of just Zeus not being able to do more. And honest to God, what was hit to me? Zeus did fine what he's supposed to do. You're a powerhouse. You're a psycho. You got crazy eyes. You just smash him. That's who you are. You're supposed to be a psycho. You're not supposed to be in there doing drop toe holds. So in my eyes, I was like, I don't have a problem with Zeus. It's just I can understand if I was, Demolition or $1 Million Man, who's the main event last year. Now he's fighting Snuka. Like the wrestlers on the card, I bet would be like, well, why can't I be Macho Man's friend? Why can't I be Beefcake? Be in the Beefcake spot? And I'm guessing there's pressure and hatred on both these men, Zeus and Beefcake, because Savage and Hogan, we know they're stars. We know they're stars. You can't argue that. Like, do you know how much heat is on Beefcake for being in the main event of SummerSlam?
Him being associated with Hulk Hogan, it was well established at this point. So sure, of course, but that was just a constant thing. And he was his buddy. I mean, they started together in a van in Florida, traveling to places. The Boulder Brothers. So he was just part of the Hulkster. It was part of the shine that you get by being close to Hulk Hogan. And let's face it, I mean, Hulkster was a star maker too. He, as I said, that he took care of Zeus. He knew what Zeus was doing and helping with this storyline. So he made sure he was taken care of and helped him along the line, the way this thing went. And Randy Savage too. Tiny Lister talks about how Randy was awesome to him because Randy knew this is how you make money. You take care of people. I'm sorry. They all knew. Okay. Yeah. You're not here. We are, and we're going to make the most of this. We are on our own. Everybody here works as an independent contractor, basically. And so get over it. You're lucky. You're fortunate that you're even in this universe because there are how many thousands of professional wrestlers out there in the world. And look at our roster. What is there? 60 of us. Thank God that you're here. So did they all want to be there? Of course they did. But at the same time, and I thought this was interesting too. I've heard Peter Rosenberg talk about this before. That this business, it's cutthroat. But if you really think about it, and these are these giant men that pound each other, and but the bottom line of the business is that you have to take care of each other. Bottom line, you have to take care of each other out there in the ring. You've got to be great with how you do things. You got to make people. You two have to make people believe this out there, or how many there are of you in the ring. And so it's a cutthroat business. There's a lot of resentment and all these other envy and but when the bottom line of it is a business about taking care of people, because if you take care of them, it helps you benefit from it. So all that was involved. That was part of your living in the world of professional wrestling. It didn't matter if you were the WWE or the WCW, wherever the hell you were. That existed. So
if I was Zeus and if I was Brutus the Barber Beefcake, if I could quote a great man, I would say, "Fuck it." If those guys don't like me being the main event of SummerSlam, getting a payday. It's actually the third highest rated watch SummerSlam since 2024, but obviously for a long time it was on the network and you couldn't buy pay-per-views. But in reality, for a long time it held the record for the third highest viewed SummerSlam. So in reality, I thought it was great. 20,000 people in New Jersey. It's summer. That sounds like fun. But in reality, I've had a great time talking to you about everything from how Zeus broke from the movie screen to become a professional wrestler, to Hacksaw Jim Duggan being Mr. Merchandise, to Tony Schiavone showing us that he's an ace and he deserves his flowers in the WWF, definitely. Yes. But in reality, I'm Steve Fall. He's Sean Mooney. Have a wonderful day. And thank you for watching our talk about SummerSlam 1989. Have a great day, folks. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
It's the Golden Age of WWE.